You're standing in a forest at dusk. 90 meters away, behind a fallen log, there is a mountain lion. She weighs 60 kilos. 3 days ago, she killed a full-grown deer by breaking its neck with her jaws. Right now, she can see you. You cannot see her. You have no weapon, no dog, no fire, no idea she is there at all. The only thing you have is a small speaker sitting in the leaves beside your boot. And in about 4 seconds, that speaker is going to start playing a recording of a middle-aged man calmly reading poetry out loud. Not a gunshot, not a scream, not a barking dog. A guy, reading, poetry. And the moment it starts, that mountain lion is going to abandon the deer she killed, turn around, and run. That is not a thriller I made up. That is a real experiment run by real scientists in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California, and the recordings really were ordinary people talking. Here's the part that should stop you cold. Those same pumas also heard recordings of frogs played through the same speaker, at the same volume, and they did not care. They kept eating, so it was not the speaker, it was not the volume, it was not the surprise, it was the human voice, which leaves a question almost nobody answers properly. Why? Why does the sound of a person simply talking, not hunting, not shooting, not even walking, just talking, work as one of the most powerful terror signals on this entire planet? There are several layers to this. Each one is stranger than the one before it, and the last one is going to change how you think about your own throat. Let us go. Start with the study itself, because the details matter. Researchers working with pumas in the Santa Cruz Mountains fitted the cats with GPS collars. When a puma made a kill and settled in to feed, the team went out and set up a speaker near the carcass wired to a motion sensor. Then they left. When the puma came back to eat, the sensor tripped and the speaker played one of two things. Option 1, recordings of people talking. Calm conversation, reading aloud. Nothing aggressive, nothing loud, no shouting, no threat of any kind. Option 2, the control. Recordings of Pacific tree frogs. Same speaker, same volume, same clearing, same cat, same carcass. The only variable in the entire experiment was what came out of the box. The frogs did essentially nothing. The pumas glanced up and went back to dinner, because of course they did. A frog is not a problem. The human voices produced something else entirely. In the published results, the pumas fled the kill in about 83% of trials. They did not creep away, they did not weigh it up. They left, and then they stayed gone, taking on average more than 20 times longer to come back to their own food than the cats who heard frogs. Some never came back at all. And across the board, the cats who heard a voice cut their feeding time roughly in half. Sit with what that costs an animal, because it is genuinely brutal. That puma already spent the calories. She already did the stalk, the sprint, the kill, the drag. That is the most expensive and most dangerous thing a predator ever does, and she had already paid for it in full. The meat was lying right there, free, already dead. And a voice came out of a bush, and she walked away from her own paid-for meal, hungry, for nothing. A predator that abandons a kill is a predator that worked for free, and in the wild, working for free is how you die. Every calorie she spent on that deer is gone and it is not coming back. Evolution does not tolerate that kind of waste. It tolerated this, which tells you something enormous. Whatever that voice signals to her, it is worse than hunger. And here's something I want you thinking about while we go. Have you ever been alone, somewhere wild, a trail, a forest, a dark road, and caught yourself talking out loud? Humming. Announcing to nobody that you are just going to keep walking now. Almost everybody does it, and almost everybody feels slightly stupid about it. Hold on to that. By the end of this, you are going to find out it was not stupid at all, and it may be the most sophisticated thing you have ever done by accident. Tell me below whether you do it. I want to see how many of us there are. Now, the obvious objection, and it is a good one. Those are California pumas. They live downhill from Silicon Valley. They have been shot at, chased, and hazed out of their range for a century and a half. Of course, they are jumpy about human voices. That is not deep biology. That is local trauma. If that is the explanation, this whole thing collapses into a regional story about one nervous population of cats. So the scientists went and tested it somewhere that would break it. They went to England, and they picked an animal that has no business being afraid of anything on this list. Badgers. European badgers in Weetham Woods near Oxford. The team set up speakers at badger feeding sites and played 4 things: bears, wolves, dogs, and people talking. Now think about what a British badger actually knows. Bears have been extinct in Britain for roughly 1,000 years. Wolves have been gone for centuries. No badger alive has met either one, and no badger alive has a grandparent who met either one. And they still reacted to bears and wolves, which is fascinating on its own. an inherited alarm for a monster that no longer exists. But the human voices beat all of it. Badgers hearing people talk stopped eating, took longer to come out, and spent less time at the food than badgers hearing any large carnivore on Earth. So it is not the California cats. Two completely different animals on two continents with two totally different histories, ranked the same list in the same order. Bears are frightening. Wolves are frightening. A person having a conversation is worse. A cat that hunts deer and a badger that eats earthworms agree on this, and nothing else in their lives is even remotely similar. So now you have a pattern. What you do not have is a scale. Because both of those studies are one species at a time, in the quiet, tidy, well-fed parts of the rich world. To know whether this is actually a law of nature and not just a curiosity, somebody had to go and try it where the real ones live, where the animals are big enough to argue back. So in 2023, a team went to Greater Kruger, in South Africa, and ran the biggest version of this experiment anyone has ever attempted. They rigged waterholes. In the dry season, a waterhole is not optional. Every animal in that system has to come to the water, which makes it a perfect natural laboratory where the entire cast walks past your camera. They set up camera-triggered speakers, so anything approaching the water set off a sound and recorded exactly what it did next. 19 mammal species. Thousands of trials. Elephants, rhinos, giraffes, zebras, warthogs, kudu, impala, leopards, hyenas, wild dogs, and lions. And the sounds were chosen to settle this properly. Number 1, lions. Actual snarling, growling, socially interacting lions. The real apex predator of that ecosystem. The thing every animal there has been running from for its entire evolutionary history. Number 2, hunting sounds. Dogs barking and gunshots. Number 3, a control, harmless birds. And number 4, humans. Not shouting, not screaming. People calmly speaking in the local languages of that region at a normal conversational volume. The kind of sound you make ordering coffee. 95% of the species were more likely to run from the human voices than from the lions. Not 5%. 95. Across 19 species, the animals of the African savanna were roughly twice as likely to bolt and abandon the water for a person talking than for the sound of lions actively growling nearby. They ran faster, they left sooner, and they gave up the water. In the dry season, which is not a small decision, that is giving up the one resource you cannot live without. And now the best fact on this channel so far. The lions ran too. The lions, who were the scariest sound in the other treatment, who are the reason every other animal at that waterhole has a nervous system shaped the way it is, heard people chatting and left. The apex predator of Africa was outranked by a conversation. There was one group that did not always flee, and it is exactly the group you would guess. Elephants. Some heard the human voices and went toward the speaker. A few charged it, which is not really a counterexample. That is just an elephant telling you it has met humans before and has opinions. If your model of the world just moved slightly, that is the whole point of this channel. We take one ordinary thing about you, your voice, your sleep, your tears, and we go far enough down that it stops being ordinary. Subscribe, because the next 3 layers are the ones that actually explain this, and the last one is about you, specifically. Alright, we have the what. Now the far more interesting part. Why a voice? Because there is nothing obviously dangerous about a voice. A voice cannot bite you. It cannot chase you. A gunshot makes sense as a terror signal. Teeth make sense. Sound does not hurt anything. So start here. In nature, silence is the predator's most important tool. Every hunter in that ecosystem is built around not being heard. A lion stalks. A leopard places its feet. A cat's paw exists to make a large animal arrive without a sound. If a predator is making noise, the hunt is already over. Noise is failure. Which means every animal out there has a very old, very reliable rule burned into it. The dangerous things are quiet. So what is a human voice in that grammar? It is a large animal walking through the middle of a predator's territory at conversational volume, broadcasting its exact position, continuously, and not caring. That is not the behavior of prey. Prey does not chat. Prey does not have opinions out loud in the open. There is only one kind of animal that moves through a landscape loudly announcing itself. And it is the kind that does not need to hide, because nothing out there is going to make it pay for the noise. A voice is not an alarm, it is a swagger, and every animal that hears it reads it exactly that way. There is a second thing packed into that sound, and it is worse. Speech is not a noise an animal makes at the sky. A roar is for anyone, a howl is for the pack. But talking has a shape that only makes sense if somebody is listening. It goes back and forth. It stops and starts. It waits. If you can hear people talking, you are not hearing one human. You are hearing at minimum two, probably a group, and the group is coordinating. That is the actual horror here. A single human is a snack. A group of humans that can plan out loud is the thing that took the mammoth off this planet. And that is not flattery, that is arithmetic. Researchers who put real numbers on this found that humans exploit adult prey at up to 14 times the rate other predators do. And, this is the number that matters, we kill adult land carnivores at around 9 times the rate those carnivores kill each other. Read that again. To a lion, the second most dangerous thing in its world is another lion. The most dangerous thing in its world is us, by roughly a factor of 9. We are not a competitor in that ecosystem. We are a category error, which is why scientists stopped calling us a predator and started calling us the super predator. And we have been doing it long enough for it to become biology, not culture, biology. Humans have been serious predators for something like 2 million years. Every large carnivore alive today is descended exclusively from ancestors that survived contact with us. The bold ones, the ones who investigated the noise, who walked toward the campfire, who tested whether the loud, upright thing was food. Those lineages are not here. They ended. What is left is the cautious. 10,000 generations of the cautious. So when a leopard hears a voice, it is not reasoning. It is remembering something it never experienced on behalf of ancestors it never met. One more piece and it is the quiet one. Nothing else on Earth sounds like speech. A wild soundscape is made of repeats. The same bird call, the same alarm, the same wind. Every sound out there is a loop, and animals are exquisite at loops because a loop is predictable, and predictable is safe. Speech never repeats. It rises and falls, changes pitch, stops for no reason, and starts again, and it never resolves into a pattern. To an animal's ears, a human voice is the only sound in the world that refuses to become background. It stays foreground forever, and an animal cannot relax around a sound it cannot categorize. All right, quick one, and be honest with yourself before I answer it. Of every predator on Earth, which one do you think would not run? Which one hears a human voice and does not care? Or worse, comes closer? Put it in the comments right now before the next section because I am about to name 4 of them and I want to see who called it. Lock your answer in. Because here's where a lot of videos would just keep celebrating, keep telling you how terrifying you are. And I am not going to do that because it would be a lie and you would catch it and you would be right to. This rule is powerful. It is not universal. There are animals for whom your voice means absolutely nothing, and there are a couple for whom it means something much worse than nothing. And the exceptions are not random. That is the beautiful part. Every single one of them breaks in the exact same place, and once you see where, the whole rule finally makes sense. Exception 1. The polar bear. Everything we have said depends on a shared history, on generations of a species learning in blood that the talking thing kills. A polar bear does not have that. It evolved hunting seals on sea ice, in a place where for almost all of its history there were essentially no humans at all, and the handful that were there never put a meaningful dent in the population. So the polar bear never sat the exam. It never lost its bold ones. Nothing pruned that lineage. It hears your voice, and it does not hear a super predator, because nothing in its ancestry ever told it to. It hears a large, slow, warm object standing in the open on the ice, making an interesting noise. And it is curious. That is the whole difference. Everywhere else on Earth, curiosity about humans got bred out. Up there, it never got the chance. Exception 2, and this is the one that turns the whole video around. The crocodile. A saltwater crocodile is not a mammal doing risk math. It is a 200-million-year-old ambush machine that hunts by sensing disturbance in water from underneath, where it cannot see you and does not need to. It has no history of being hunted by us at any scale that mattered, and it does not do the risk arithmetic that a cat does, because it barely takes a risk. It waits, and then the water explodes. And here is the genuinely horrifying part. To a crocodile, sound at the water's edge is not a warning at all. It is information. It says something large and warm is standing on that bank. It has stopped moving, and it is distracted. Your voice does not repel that animal. Your voice gives it your address. Exception 3, and this is the one we cause. Habituation. The inherited fear is strong, but it is not permanent, and it is astonishingly easy to delete. Feed a bear from a car window for 1 summer, and it learns something that overwrites 2 million years, which is that the talking thing brings food. Now your voice is not a warning siren, it is a dinner bell. This is the real reason rangers are so aggressive about your food and your bins, and it was never about the bin. Every fed animal is one animal permanently removed from the agreement, and it usually ends with that animal being destroyed. We broke the deal, and it dies for it. Exception 4 is not an animal, it is a place, and it is the one that keeps me honest. The deal is local. It is negotiated separately, everywhere, and in some places the terms are just different. In the Sundarbans, the mangrove forest between India and Bangladesh, tigers have killed people at rates that have no equivalent anywhere else on Earth. In an environment where humans have to enter tiger habitat by boat, on the tiger's terms, quietly, in ones and twos, to collect honey and catch fish. In Harar, in Ethiopia, people hand-feed wild hyenas by name at night, and the hyenas come, because there the arrangement has been something closer to a partnership for generations. Same species of animal, opposite relationship. Nothing about this is one global rule handed down from nature. It is a running negotiation, and both sides keep renegotiating. And exception 5, the oldest one, the broken ones. Almost every famous case of a predator systematically hunting people turns out to be an animal that could no longer do its actual job. The Champawat tiger, which killed hundreds of people in India and Nepal, was found afterward to have had its canines shattered by an old gunshot. It physically could not hunt deer anymore. The lions of Tsavo had severe dental and jaw damage. The pattern barely varies, and once you know it, you cannot stop seeing it. Healthy predator, intact ecosystem, normal prey available, keeps the deal every time. Starving, injured, cornered, habitat gone, or taught by us that people mean food, and the math changes. So the rule is not magic and it was never a promise. The rule is a calculation, running fresh in that animal's head every time it hears you. Change the inputs and you change the answer, which means the fear is real, it is just not owed to you. If you appreciate that I would rather give you the exceptions than a clean lie, hit like. Genuinely, it is the only signal that tells the algorithm this kind of thing is worth showing to somebody else. Okay, 2 layers left, and they are the 2 best ones. Because this fear is not a fun fact. It is an ecological force, and it is reshaping the world right now, silently, without us touching anything. Scientists call it the landscape of fear. And here's the thing about it. You do not have to do anything to a predator to change it. You do not have to hunt it. You do not have to see it. You never even have to know it was there. Your voice alone rearranges where it can afford to be, when it can afford to eat, and how much it has to kill. And every one of those knobs is wired to everything else. Follow the puma. She hears a voice. She abandons her deer. But she needs the same calories tomorrow that she needed today, so she has to kill again, sooner. In areas of high human housing density, researchers found pumas killed substantially more deer than pumas in quiet areas, on the order of a third more. Not because they were hungrier or greedier, because they kept getting scared off their food before they finished it. Think about the shape of that. By existing and by talking, we made a predator kill more. Nobody intended it. Nobody was even there. And it does not stop at the cat. In the same system, when researchers played human voices, the medium-sized predators, the bobcats, the skunks, the opossums, cut their activity too. And with the mesopredators nervous and moving less, the mice below them got measurably bolder and foraged more. That is 4 levels of a food web, from a big cat down to a rodent, all shifting, and the only thing that entered that forest was the sound of people talking. Your voice moves mice. That is the actual finding. Your voice moves mice, and you were not even in the room. Which, and I love this, means it can be pointed. If the sound of a person is the most feared thing on the savannah, then a speaker is a fence that does not need a post. Conservation teams have been testing exactly that, using automated human voice playbacks to push animals away from danger, to steer rhinos out of poaching hotspots. It is early, and habituation is the obvious threat to it. But the concept is beautiful. We spent 2 million years building a reputation so terrifying that we can now use the echo of it to protect the animals we built it on. Okay? Real fight in the comments. Pick a side. Team Voice says the sound is the trigger. That speech itself is the unfakeable signature of the super predator, and that is the whole story. Team Scent says no. The voice only works because it is welded to a smell they already know, and a voice from an animal that had never hurt them would mean nothing. One of those is closer to right. Pick one, say why, and go argue about it. I will pin the best answer from each side. And now the last layer, which I saved for the end because it is the one that actually matters, and it is not about the animals at all. Here's the question we never asked. Why do you have this voice in the first place? A voice this frightening is not a weapon we designed. Nobody sat around a fire 2 million years ago and decided to evolve speech in order to scare leopards. So what is it actually for? Speech did not evolve to threaten anything. Speech evolved to point, to warn each other, to say there is water 2 days that way, my father died there, do not eat the red one, get behind me, I will go left and you go right. Every terrifying thing about the human voice is a side effect of the least terrifying thing in nature, which is one animal helping another animal understand something. We did not get the voice by being violent. We got it by being together. The violence was downstream. The voice came first, and the voice is why the violence worked. So when that puma bolts off her kill, she is not running from a sound. She is running from what the sound implies, and her nervous system worked it out long before her brain did. It means they are here. It means there is more than one of them. It means they are talking, so they are planning, so whatever happens next is not a fight between her and one animal. It is her against a group that can think out loud. There has never been a defense against that. Not for 2 million years, and every large carnivore alive is carrying the receipt, so sit with the whole shape of it. You have no claws, no fangs, you cannot see in the dark, you cannot outrun a house cat, and objectively, as an animal, you are an embarrassment. And you can walk into a forest holding nothing, threatening nobody, and open your mouth and say something completely mundane, out loud, and a 60-kilo predator will abandon the meal she killed and disappear into the trees. Not because of who you are, because of what you are. That is not you being scary. That is 10,000 generations of your ancestors standing behind you, and every one of them survived by talking to the person next to them. You inherited a reputation you never earned, and you carry it around in your throat. And that thing from the beginning. The talking out loud in the dark, the humming on the trail, the announcing to nobody that you are just going to keep walking now. You were never being stupid. You were doing the oldest thing your species knows how to do, which is make the sound that says, I am not alone out here. And it works, because for 2 million years, it has almost always been true. Tell me in the comments what you say out loud when you are alone in the dark. I really want to read those. Like it, subscribe, and go argue about the voice.